Hey, her lighters, it's Erin Foley back in the booth talking women's sports. Yes, I do sound like a dump truck this episode. I got some crazy cold over the weekend and I'm working through it. So this is what I sound like. I don't know, Kathleen Turner. I've got a very low voice today. She actually sounds much better than this. So I apologize for sounding like this, but I did not want to cancel on my guest, and I'm so excited for this episode. Today I'm talking to Dr. Jen Welter, who has done more for the women in football than you can possibly imagine. And I was so excited to talk to her for so many different reasons. But number one, I have loved football since I was a little kid. It was my first love. I had football sticker albums. I have still have my football trading cards. Is that what they call them? Football cards. Dear NyQuil, you're kicking in. And I wanted to be a wide receiver for the New York Giants growing up. And to this day, it is my it's still my dream to play wide receiver for the New York Giants. I remember when I was a little kid, I must have been 9 or 10 years old. What I say is the greatest weekend of my youth is when I borrowed this kid, Jeremy Christie. I'm sure I have no idea where he is now. After, I don't know, fifth grade, we didn't keep in touch, but I borrowed his Pittsburgh Steelers helmet. I'm not even a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. He just happened to have this helmet and I borrowed it on a Friday afternoon. I can remember I can remember this like it was yesterday. I borrowed it on a Friday afternoon. I didn't have to return it to Monday. So I had his helmet for the entire weekend. And let me tell you this, people, I did not take the helmet off. I pretended I was in the NFL all weekend and it was glorious. And I have two sisters and I remember just being like, pass me the ball, pass me the ball. And they were like, oh, get out of here. Because they were literally playing with Barbies. That's how stereotypical it was. And I would throw the ball to myself with this helmet on. And then it was like dinner time that night. And I went to the dinner table with my helmet on, which now I know obviously gave my mom a heart attack. And I tried to feed myself dinner through the face mask. That's how I just was like, I can't take this helmet off. And she's like, take the helmet off at the dinner table. And I ate so quickly because then I had to put the helmet back on. And I've loved football my entire life. But of course, there was no opportunities, for women to even dream of playing football. And our guest today really has helped change that conversation. And I'm so excited she's here. She's an absolute pioneer. She's the first woman to coach in the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals, the first woman to play men's pro football in a contact position. She played women's professional football for over 15 years. She's a two-time gold medalist with Team USA. She runs Grrridiron camps for girls and teaches them football and flag football. She also has a PhD in psychology, which she uses to help coach players. She's just a trailblazer, an icon, and she's really, really, truly helped put women's football on the map and continues to work tirelessly on behalf of women to give them more opportunities to play professional football. And her enthusiasm for the sport is just really fun to be around. So let's get into it. First of all, I have enough material. If we started recording now, we could just record for about 75 hours. So it was
Sure.
so hard to figure out what to ask you and sort of what to cover because you've done so much. It really it feels mind blowing. But um, football for me was my first love. I'm so excited the amount of opportunities now that I didn't have growing up. So I just want to jump in right there and like, when was the moment when you're like, when you just decided to like go all in with football?
As a kid, I loved it too. I literally remember watching a game, and it was like my first game. And, I'm from a small town, and the stadium is the biggest thing there. And it is the biggest thing in the town. Like everybody goes. It is like Friday Night Lights. The lights couldn't be brighter. And watching the field, I felt like they looked like real life superheroes. And I just thought, I want to be a superhero. And that was the first place in the world somebody said girls don't do that. And I remember as a little kid just thinking, like, why? Like, it wasn't like I was crushed and never to recover, but it was kind of like, huh, never had an opportunity to play other than like, the powder puff game, which of course, we won. I mean, I'm still going to go with the first championship was the powder puff game. And I scored the only touchdown.
Nice.
Um, but, in college, I played rugby because it was the closest I could get to football. Right. When I saw it, it looked like insanity, and yet they got to tackle. So that was appealing. And played all 4 years at Boston College, got recruited to the under 23 national team, did not make it. Thought my life was like my athletic life was okay, it's time to be a grown up. Was playing flag football on weekends and got recruited to a team called the Mass Mutiny, which present day is the Boston Renegades. And they literally asked, is there a woman who's playing flag who you think could play tackle? Full disclosure, coming from rugby, I had never stopped tackling. So they were probably like, get this girl out of here. She breaks all of the rules. Um, and when I made my first football team, it just felt so full circle and so fulfilling in life that I made myself probably the biggest small promise you could make. And that was I would step up to every challenge the game put in my way. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I did that. I mean, it's still kind of my like, oh, somebody should do that. Oh, me? Oh, really? Can I do that? And I think that's being a first is like, you really kind of go, that sounds like somebody should do something about that. And then you realize that they're looking at you to do something about that. So that's kind of been my life journey. But it was just when I made that team, it was like, this is what I'm meant to do, period.
Wow. Just for our audience, because honestly, a lot of people don't even know that women can play professional football. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's shocking to me. It's not shocking because I'm an absolute like nerd fest when it comes to sports. But I didn't even know that was even remotely possible, even if you asked me in my 20s. Now, at that point, I was in New York City trying to figure out if I was gay, drinking a lot, doing stand up comedy. So it's not like I was eligible for a team, but I didn't even know there was women's professional football until I did a short film about women's professional football somewhere in Long Island, and I met like half the team from like the New York
Yeah.
Sharks or something like that. I think they
Yeah. The
were
New York
called.
Sharks.
Yeah, that's how
Absolutely.
I learned about it, doing some random like short film. And so I just was like, wait, where it kind of blew my mind that I didn't know. And then I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, football has got to be like it feels like the last male bastion. It feels like the
Yeah.
impossible thing to cross for a woman. So when you were playing in those leagues, was it I'm assuming there's obviously no money involved. You played it for like the love of the game and you just kind of like kept playing because you loved it.
Yeah. Okay. So there's so much in that saying. One, I think we should do many more short films. Because this is something, and I love what you're doing with your podcast because these are the stories that have
Yeah.
not been told, right? Like the women of this game we used to laughingly say we were the best kept secret in sports. We just didn't want to be a secret anymore. And
Yeah.
that's where they say great comedy comes from like real life pain. That is the truth. And I always lovingly say that it's women's pro football because we couldn't afford the professional, right? That was not in the budget, right? That's way too many, like way too many zeros, right? We're not there yet. Um, it just really had to be the love of the game. And I think I know for me and all of the women that I've talked to this about, we were playing to literally play the game forward, right? We were playing to help society move forward in what we referred to as the final frontier for women in sports. And I took that as a challenge. Like, if this is the final frontier, right? If this is the place that we're not supposed to go, when we do this, don't we shift culture in the game that stole Sundays from the church, found its way to almost every night of the week. Right now, it's going to Christmas too. It's embedded in our Thanksgivings, and the only place that we have for women is like with our backs to the game and pom poms in our hands. Like, I'm sorry. I have respect for cheerleaders. I have no cheer in me. I'm not flipping. If I do a split, please call 911 because I'm broken. Like I was just not made that way. This cannot be the only place for a woman at football, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more rough and tumble than that. And so why is this the one place, especially the game that we call America's game, that is not game for women? And it was always like, does not compute. And it was like, as you're playing, you kind of think, if I could make one more tackle, if I could get that much faster, if, my highlight reels, if only they would go viral back then, right? Like, if I could do that, then don't we, open minds, open hearts, and open doors. And that's still the case for football to this day.
Well, absolutely. Because when I'm doing my deep dives on football, I learned so much. And I'm like just the hugest fan, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just one of these things where, I look at the growth of soccer and all the iterations to finally, secure the NWSL. And I look at like pro volleyball about to kick off a huge league. Softball has, athletes unlimited. That's now going to hopefully be, more of a pro year round league. What else? Tennis. Like you can name the 4 or 5 big ones. Obviously, the WNBA. Where
Yep.
is the coverage for football? Like
Right.
these pro leagues have been going on for 20 years,
Yep.
Now it feels like this escalation, this rise in flag football, which I obviously want to get to. So it's just so interesting. And when I was thinking about it over the weekend, I'm like, it really just feels like this is the ultimate, like women are supposed to be like this and men are this, there's nothing more aggressive and male than football. And it really truly feels like sexism, like at its finest. And it got me so angry.
And I think it's so healthy to see women in all of their glorious differences, right? Like I I think football is this beautiful sport because literally you have every make, model, shape, size, creed, color, sexual orientation, you name it, we've got it. That's what makes the locker room work, right? Like
Yeah.
in men's and women's, right? Like you have to have different and special because I don't care who your favorite player is, right? Tom Brady just retired, freaking GOAT. But don't make me build a team with 11 Tom Brady's on the
Yeah.
field at one time. We're going to get smashed, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need you need one Brady and a whole lot of different around him.
Yeah.
And this is that prototypical sport that we've yet to embrace for women. And
Yeah.
you do see breakout moments, but it's mostly when the women stepped onto the men's field, right? Like when I played on the men's pro team, I was the number one story in the country and I think parts of the world. So, going toe to toe in men's pro football for an entire year. This isn't a play. This isn't a game. This isn't a this. In that, what the beauty was is when you get that bright spotlight on one person, then you have an opportunity to say, where did she come from? Right. And I saw that people were like, well, where did she play before? And now you would talk about, oh, wow, there's women's football. But there wasn't that through line of conversation. And I think it's still really hard for some people to see that, yeah, well, you know what, women, we can tackle, shouldn't be a shocker, and we can really like it. And we can do all of those things when we have access to great coaching.
Yeah. I want to jump back in to that moment because that was one of my questions. You're playing women's pro football and then you get a call. It was the Texas Revolution? That's what it was,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you get a call for this men's team. And my question to you is like, what is your mindset at that moment? Like, is it like this is the ultimate challenge?
Yeah. So first of all, life is funny. I played football a long time, and people used to ask me all the time, like, "What's your goal? Are you trying to play like in the NFL and against men?" And I'd be like, "Guys, I'm 5'2", 130 pounds. I am not that crazy." Well, apparently I am crazy, right? Because I get this call from the Texas Revolution. They want to meet with me. I was at that time um, a combination of one of the best players, right? And one who was actually really good at marketing myself before that was really a thing. So they want to meet with me. And I go into the office. I'm going to tell you, I had to wear really tall shoes that day. I mean, I was going to be at least 5'4" when I walked in that door. And I was like, what is going on? And like, I have a PhD in psychology. And so you just look at things different. And first of all, the floor was painted like a football field. And the walls had like, if you picture behind me, if you had like literally like fan faces on it. So all these people are like staring at you. You're like, why is this awkwardly like fans when I walk in the office? And two very distinct personalities. The owner of the team looks like he's trying to sell me a used car. He is wearing a purple suit and he is very excited to meet me. And the head coach looks like he is drawing in his non-existent playbook, like as if he doesn't make eye contact, I might spontaneously combust. He is
Wow.
very not happy with whatever is going on in this meeting. He is not a fan. And eventually the owner of the team is like, Jen, we think it would be amazing if you would go through a day of training camp with our guys. And I was like, so you want me to like go out, smile for the cameras, run around, catch some passes, get you some good pub? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, as somebody who just won my second gold medal, that's insulting. And if I was any one of your guys on your team, I would absolutely hate it. If you want to do anything with me and your football team, either I do everything they do, step for step, hit for all of training camp, or I do nothing at all. And the second the words came out of my mouth, I was like, oh dear God. I knew. Like, when you feel it, you say it, and it can't be unsaid.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I knew it was now happening. I had shifted the like goosebumps. I knew now. Like, once I said it, oh, like this is gonna happen. And I might have just gotten myself killed. There were
Yeah.
no delusions of grandeur like that. I, at 37 years old, 5'2", 130 pounds, should be playing tackle football against men. No part of me had set out to do it ever.
Wow.
And that was literally how this went down. And then I was like, what am I thinking? What am I doing? And it ended up, not only making it through training camp, but making the team and, scratching and clawing and fighting to be on practice squad, right? Got in, I think, 4 games throughout the season. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is arena football. So you can't even run out of bounds. There's not a thing. You're in and you're a running back, you're getting hit on every play. Now, let me tell you, every guy I ever went up with against had a mandate. We don't care if they beat you by 1,000. The girl does
Right?
not score.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it was one of the best things I ever did with my life. And I say that because one, I was willing to do it for every woman who, like me, had been in the trenches playing for $1 a game, right? We were going to need something drastic. We were the best in the world. Team
Yeah.
USA won 2 gold medals. We'd done all that, and nobody knew we existed. Nobody gave a damn that I was a football player until I was willing to play against the guys. And so, yeah, like, would I risk myself for that? Sure. But I wouldn't change it for anything in the world.
Yeah.
And
I
it
mean,
taught me how to be a great teammate for those guys.
it's also just pure like amazing street cred. I mean, just on your resume, but also just like life confidence, like
Yeah.
I can imagine, if there's a crossroads in your life or something happens, you just like can channel that. God, if I can do that, like I can literally do anything. What women have to do to play the sport they love, no matter what it is, but I think
Yeah.
football absolutely is the hardest. Like you have to go against the best of the best against women and then go and get smacked around by these dudes, but you're still like pardon the pun, you're in the arena, you're putting yourself on the map, you're putting the sport on the map. But like that's why I always think the stories for women's sports are just so much more interesting. It's just women, what they have to go through, what you have to go through just to play, not even make a living just to play.
Right.
So just to let all also the listeners know, while you're playing this, you're also getting your PhD in psychology. So you're playing, is it the type of schedule you're like, you know, people are working during the week and you're playing during the weekend like no professional male player does, like again another thing you have to go through, so that's
Yep.
like you're supporting yourself while you're playing.
Yep. I tell people for a long time my life was work by day, play football by night, go to school by very late night, because there was no direct path for a woman in football. Um, but what I thought is if I could take my practical experience on the field and marry it with the education, then I would be this cool mix of theory and practice and hopefully be a unique value proposition to the sport, right? And I think that was kind of my secret sauce. And I also think part of the reason why you see women athletes become such great multifaceted humans, right? Like in
Mm-hmm.
everything we do, is that very few of us ever got to think, I'm going to retire off what we're getting in sports. We always had to hustle. Like it's a full-time job to be a woman in sports. You got to have like, I don't know, 47 full-time jobs or
Yeah.
part-time jobs. You know, you're the agent, you're the manager, you're the marketer, you're the oh, let me ask my team. Hey, team. I mean, like
Yeah.
anyone who knows me knows if I tell you I gotta ask my boss, it's my dog. Her name is Boss. But like I gotta get approval. And the
Yeah.
approval comes in the form of a pit bull chihuahua who's like my spirit animal.
Pitbull Chihuahua. I can't say that's probably a mix that was ever supposed to happen. Looks
Oh, she's so
like.
cute. You'll
I
meet her.
bet.
You'll meet
I'm
her.
I'm
But yeah,
obsessed with
she's
pit bulls.
adorable. Yeah.
Oh my God. I love it. Yeah, that is the thing. It's like no one, well, I think, people are, I heard a stat the other day that now women's sports are getting 15% of media
15.
coverage when last year, literally last summer, when I sort of started this project via YouTube, it was four. Yeah, it was 4%. And now it's 15. I was like, that feels like skyrocketing. And we're still only at 15%.
Yeah.
Let me just ask you, you know, when you started out in football and now where we are with women's football, just the game itself, participation, attendance, all of it, if you can kind of like do the big picture, like how far has it come?
Well, they say patience is a virtue, and clearly it's not one of mine because I would love us to be much further.
Yeah.
However, I can't say that we haven't come much, that we haven't come further than I even imagined possible, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you look at the fact that flag football will be an Olympic sport in 2028, girls can now get college scholarships to play flag football. Those things are huge. You've seen breakout stars like Diana Flores, who got a Super Bowl commercial. That is also huge. When you look at the state of tackle football, we're not there yet. When you look at pro, thinking pro football for women is an option, it's not in flag or tackle. Do I think it'll happen in a relatively short time? Sure, you're going to have to. You're going to see, I think the next big domino to fall is like Division 1, other than you have ASU, which is a Division 1 HBCU that added flag football this year. But I think you're going to have to see the big schools, like the big, powerhouse men's schools,
Mm,
um, have flag football programs to go along with them, because what, you're going to have an Olympic track and you're not going to have a
right.
football team. It's also such an easy Title IX equalizer. When you talk about flag football, it's a cheap sport. That's why it's a global game. all you need to practice is a ball, right? That's why soccer is a global game. But what I don't want to see happen is that it's tackle for the boys and only flag for the girls. I don't think that's what has to happen. I think that's been the easiest jump. But what I'd love to see from a development perspective is that, you know, girls get the opportunity to develop the fluidity of skills early. I mean, you see some of these young girls now, like Kaylee Patterson. You haven't seen her yet. You know, Mila Ramos, her quarterback. You've got Yaya out in Vegas and her sister Kilolo. You've got Liv and Alyssa out in New York State Giants. Like these girls that have started young and have had the chance to play their way through, when they get older, they'll be able to say, you know what? I want to play flag, I want to play tackle. And then the skill level is going to be girls who got to play when I wanted to, when you wanted to, not women like me who didn't get to play until they were 22, you know?
Yeah.
And I went on to be one of the best women in the world, but the level that these girls are going to be at by the time they're 22, oh, there's no way that you're not going to see a sport that, you know, they get to kind of tackle their dreams the way I did. So
So,
I think we've
yeah.
come far, but we got a lot of, you know, we got a lot of room for growth because all women in football are still paying to play.
Oh, absolutely. But on the developmental level, is there more interest and money and availability or opportunity with flag football than tackle football? Is that sort of more palatable for the parents and the coaches in
Yeah.
society?
I mean, you're seeing even on the men's side a shift towards playing flag football at younger ages and then deciding if you want to transition into tackle.
Mm.
Um, you know, for the, you know, the big C word, and we've got many when it comes to women, but the big C word when it comes to football is a challenge, and especially at younger ages, you can develop skill positions in flag and then add the pads. Even in, you know, even in tackle football, like in the NFL, we have periods where you're essentially playing flag football. You're doing 7-on-7. So you can develop the route running, you can develop the defense, all the, you know, the timing between quarterbacks and receivers, all of those things without having to have contact. So there are 7-on-7 periods even within, you know, high school, college, pro football practices. So they work really well together. I think what's been a hard mental, you know, leap for some people is at times when tackle participation has declined for some of the younger kids, especially, is that the point of entry that you would start for girls?
Mm.
And I don't think that's necessarily a yes. So you're seeing more and more youth development, if not fully go to flag, having flag as a complement where you might even play tackle one season and flag the next. But I think with flag football now having a direct pathway for women to go to college and to play in the Olympics, aren't you going to put your money to a place where they can have that desired outcome, right? Because there's still not I'm going to play my way to a better life in tackle football pathway.
And you think one day, hopefully sooner than later, that flag football will become like the pathway of like a pro league, paid league before tackle.
For sure, it's easier.
Yeah. It's
It's
definitely easier. If I was
easier.
a parent too, I would be like, yeah, play flag.
Well, it's, you know, it's this is why it's harder, right? Or why flag is easier. You know, flag, you're looking at a 15-person roster, and you're looking at, you know, we need cleats, we need jerseys, we need flags, we need the basics, right? Tackle, you're looking at a 53-man roster minimum,
Mm.
right? With when we traveled internationally, actually, it was skeleton and it was 45. 45 times everything. So you could have 3 flag football teams for 1 tackle team in terms of player numbers, and that doesn't include equipment or any of that. So it's just more economically feasible. And globally, I mean, I was the head coach of the Australian women's national team, and that was where really the light bulb went off for me in that this was a global alternative, because we had players over there whose helmets were, I don't know how old, but they had inherited them from someone. The pads were ill fitted because they got them from like their boyfriends, so like when we went to put them in fitted jerseys, I was like, oh, but like things that we wouldn't even think about. And
Yeah.
I literally schlepped freaking down and distance markers through the airport because they couldn't get them over there, right? Like those things are all prohibitive. So if you look at a way, financially, could you spin up a league where you could pay women to play football? It's going to be easier in flag for all of those reasons than it is for tackle.
So when I'm reading all your accomplishments, I'm like, these are embedded with obviously so much struggle, but the psychology piece almost didn't surprise me, just because you went on to coaching, you have to have such a killer mindset and know people and know yourself to get through these moments of just like, well, what am I going to do now, and how am I going to motivate people, and how I'm going to motivate myself, like in your coaching. Let's start with the Arizona gig. Obviously, that was like a huge barrier. I mean, just broke through, and you're the first woman to coach an NFL team. But um, is it completely different coaching the men and the women? Is there one you prefer for a different reason, or?
I love coaching both. Both are challenges. They have their own. I think coaching the men, what I really liked is that they've been really big advocates of mine, especially in spaces that people thought that I wouldn't. And it was so fascinating because, I tell people the challenge of being at first is that it inherently means only. There's no go-to playbook, there's no roadmap. And it's a lot of pressure because, the narrative was, would guys in the NFL take coaching from a woman? Not from Jen Welter, a woman, right? There was a sample set of one, and it's okay. You're just coaching on behalf of all women everywhere, no problem. Um, and you know, I had gotten advice from Terry Glenn, who literally said, be 100% authentic. He's like, Jen, if you're the person that you are, and we're in arena, they will love you. If you're not, they'll sense it and eat you alive. And I just really look at people first. And I, I actually made international news. They called me the noteworthy coach because I wrote my players notes and put them in their lockers. Um, First of all, I thought the locker room was like Vegas, and clearly I was wrong because they told the reporter, um, in their entire career they'd never had a coach care like that.
Wow.
So really bringing empathy to the locker room, um, was my special sauce and still is. And I think, it's so interesting because with the guys, there's an inherent competition, whereas, I'm a 5 foot woman. Like I can go toe to toe, but I certainly can't go chest to chest and eye to eye. It's like eye to belly button. So, there's, I would laugh and tell people, I'd be like, I couldn't yell loud enough for any of them to listen, but any one of those guys could lean in for a whisper. So I'm very one on one. It's me and you. Doesn't need to be about everybody else. Like coach athlete relationship is first and foremost. And I think it works well with the guys. It's almost like a change up pitch, right? And there are certain things that guys would talk to me about that maybe not someone else. I mean, I had 3 players, who told a reporter when I was in the XFL that I saved their lives, right? That to me is, yes, it's being a woman. Yes, it's having been there. And yes, it's having a PhD in psychology and allowing them to be their full human selves, not just what looks like a superhero with big pads and big helmets, it doesn't mean there's not a real person in there and a real person who can really struggle at times. Um, with the women, it's a bit different. I think that it gets to be more like when guys coach guys in that, there is a, walk a mile in my cleats or be better than dynamic. Um, Women, first of all, we like to know the why. That's a big different one. Guys will be like, yes, just do it. Women, we want to understand why. How does this fit together? And then once you tell us, we'll do it. But that whole just, and this is in football and in life, right? Like,
Yeah.
you just tell me to go do it. And I'm like, why? Like, that's going to be my first question. But if you tell me, like, hey, we're trying to accomplish this, and if you do this, this will open this, I'm like, done. Right? Like, cool. I'm an
Interesting.
ultimate team player, but I don't like to just be ordered. That doesn't work for me. I like the context, right? So with women, that's one of the interesting things. I think the trust and love is consistent. But one thing I learned almost the hard way when I coached Team Australia was, and it was my first time being a head coach, like I would ask women to do stuff that I had done when I played, and they'd be like, oh, but you can do that because you're Jen Welter. And I'm like, what does that mean? Right? Like first of all, why are you saying my whole name? Like I'm not human, right? Like, oh, like you're so far away. But what I realized is I had done a great job throughout my playing career through the things like getting up first and doing all those things to make myself almost seem larger than life. And larger than life is not approachable. It's not coachable, right? If that person is just, superhuman, then I super may not measure up, right?
Yeah.
And so I actually, with the Australian team, once I realized that, I I went and I made every one of the players, tell me what my kryptonite was. Only one of them said top shelves in the kitchen. I mean, only one. But I needed them to see me as being human so that they could realize we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. And, you know, that was a different vantage point in having played, similar fields and competition as those women that I didn't need to go through with the men. So I love them both. I just find them very different in terms of approach. But I think, I always say that one-on-ones are really important, and then our words really matter. So really looking holistically at relationships and how those dynamics need to be, allowing us to, then have a much stronger coach athlete relationship.
So just a couple more questions because I could talk to you for 7 hours. Women in the NFL. Now, it's been fantastic seeing the last couple of years. Obviously, I knew of you and Lisa King and Sarah Thomas and kind of these trailblazers, but it just seems like now more and more when there's announcement of, so and so is on the scouting team for the Cleveland Browns. Or, it's not like, oh my God, which is the whole point, which you must be so exciting for you to see. Maybe you could just talk to us real quick about sort of what you're seeing about more and more opportunities for women in the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. They've really been intentional about developing a pathway. And Sam Rappaport has really been the champion of developing that pathway with the NFL. Troy Vincent's also a really good advocate. And they really went intentional on it. And Sarah Thomas broke the mold first. And she's just one of the most outstanding women that you'll see. And yeah, you're going to continue to see women who have had opportunities, whether it be, college or the pros, who really get to grow into the game. And any little girl can now dream football, right? She can look out on a field and say, I want to do that. And the second that happens, that means I can do the work just like the boys can. And the likelihood that their fluidity of knowledge and their being intentional about that career path just gets bigger and bigger. And I think it's fantastic. And I think I lovingly say I am honored to be the first, but I think to really get in and do the work, like now they're hitting that stride of they get to just do the job. They don't have to um, carry the entire narrative of whether or not it's possible. And so they get to just, be that coach, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah. And I hope they call you and send gift baskets to you every 3 to 4 months. Quick pivot. I'm obsessed with your Grrridiron girls camps. First
Yes.
of all, as an adult woman, can I attend a girls camp because I've always wanted to play football? Just
So
tell everybody,
one,
but the camps are just the coolest thing.
yeah, so Gridiron Girls, the first national movement for girls in flag. It was started in 2017 because, there was still a real perception that girls couldn't play football, didn't want to play football, all of those things. Um, and I was like, you know what? That's just garbage. Girls have never had the opportunity to choose if they wanted to play. And I wanted to, be the one who put a ball in their hands and a dream in their heart. So, um, I've had some of the top girls in the country, some I name dropped earlier, come through that program and hopefully develop the love of the game. Our goal was to partner with great organizations across the country and be the sizzle while they're the substance, right? If a league's going to be there and they're going to love on these girls, you know, through the year or through the season, well, we can help them attract girls to the field. And I could be the woman that I needed when I was a kid and didn't have. Like that's
Yeah.
one of my goals every day is how can I be a positive influence for more girls. And so I say we teach confidence through football and that there is no game you cannot play and no field you do not belong in or on. And so using the game of football to teach those lessons for life and let me hopefully be kind of a constant force in that. And then I love that you asked if you as a grown woman could do a football camp. I also do football camps for women. They're called a
No
day in the
way.
life. And yeah, and we
Nice.
literally teach women, we take them through a day in the life of a player at training camp. And, you learn everything from how to read a playbook to how to throw a pass properly, running routes, tackling, of course. Every woman should learn how to tackle.
I need, first of all, I need the adult camp, absolutely. But the
Yes.
the the girls' camp, if I was a kid, that would have been an absolute dream sequence difference maker for me because
Yeah.
I loved it and there was literally absolutely nothing. And you're gonna think I'm making this up, but I'm not. Everyone like this was probably a conversation. I don't even know how I got into it. Probably 15 years ago when we were talking about I say this a lot. I'm like, oh, that's a dream sequence. That's a dream sequence. And my friend's like, you always say dream sequence. And I sat down with myself. I was like, all right, what's the Erin Foley dream sequence? And it is to play wide receiver for the New York Giants. Still to this day, it's the
Yeah.
same dream. Eli
Yeah.
Manning is the quarterback. I'm on the sidelines. I'm having a grilled cheese because it's my favorite food. I get called into the game. I score the game-winning touchdown. I spike the ball, and then Heidi Klum comes out of the tunnel with a bottle of champagne, and she's like, "Let's do this." And that is the Erin
Perfect.
Foley dream sequence. But if I could do like a camp with a bunch of women and throw the ball around, I mean, that
Oh
is the
yeah.
coolest shit ever.
Oh, when I tell you a day in the life is one of my favorites. So we've done it in LA Super Bowl, we did it, we took over the Rose Bowl. Alyssa Milano was my co-host. It was my dream sequence, right? Like I got
So
200
awesome.
women out on the Rose Bowl stadium field and got to teach them football. And of course, we had mimosas to start and tequila to finish, right? So it was the whole day, right? Like this was the
Where was
ultimate,
I?
like,
Where was I?
well, we didn't know each other yet, but
All
you're
right.
you're in for the next one. We're
All right.
we're already planning New Orleans Super Bowl and could have something coming up relatively quickly. You just have to get on a flight for that one.
I will fly anywhere to catch a football if you're throwing it to me. I know I have to, I'm trapping you, but last thing.
Yeah.
Pickleball. How did you get into it? Is this like your outlet now? Is it the pickleball?
This is my stress relief. So when I was in the XFL, and it's high pressure. I mean, you're like team hotel coaches in and out, like, you're out by, I don't know, 6-ish, maybe a little earlier in the morning, and you're back in the evening. And there was this group, like, it's high stress football, blah. And there was this group, and they were so happy all the time. And they were installing a chicken and pickle, and they were talking about how cool pickleball people were. And I was like, when I finish this season, I'm going to do that, because what I realized, and I've kind of struggled with, and I don't know if it's all coaches or women in general, I realized I, the shift from a player to a coach is that instead of putting it into ourselves, we're putting it into everybody else. And I was putting all of my energy into everyone else, giving the girls opportunity, giving the women opportunities, and I was putting myself at the end of the equation. And that's not a great place to be. And I also moved to LA in the middle of a pandemic. So that was also not a great place to be. So very isolated, coming in and out with football. And I was like, well, where do I fit? And kind of had that, like, a little bit of identity crisis, you know, this can't be the rest of my life. And like, what am I? And it made me think of my grandma. She used to say, like, I don't give a shit about all those trophies. Are you having any fun? And I was like, well, no, I want to like go and have fun and just meet new people. And it seems like this would be a good place to do it. I'm also highly competitive, duh. Um, so I took a couple of lessons, but then had to really bust my butt to produce those events for Super Bowl. Um, and then after I, basically recovered a bit, I was like, okay, now I really want to play. And now I don't know anybody in LA who plays. And someone was like, duh, just go to open play. And I was like, what? And of course, like, I'm completely obsessed. And I've been playing, I'm going on month 3 now. So
Oh my God.
there's that.
I feel like in another like month you're going to be like a 7-0 player. I don't think that's a thing, but like you're such an incredible athlete that this you're just gonna start kicking ass. That's my
Well,
prediction anyway.
yeah, I mean, I'm kicking some ass. I'm, mid top, I would
It's
say.
fun. Fun
It's
first of all.
so fun. And, it was, I'll say one of the things that was really cool, and I know you'll get this. Um, I'd just show up and be Jen who plays pickleball,
Yeah.
not Jen who has this title, or Jen who's broken this barrier, or Jen who has all of the expectations that follow anytime I do anything football related. Like, I'm just like everybody else. That wiffle ball will tell you the truth, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can be humbled quickly by somebody who,
Very
you
quickly.
know, as a coach, where we have to weigh and measure everyone's everything, right? 40 times on the clock, all that stuff. You walk out in the court, you'd be like, yeah, I got this. And then you'll quickly see, like, no, you don't got this. And it's a
So
great
true.
equalizer in that, right? Like, I just love that I've got to meet so many like really fun, wonderful people. And like, they would laugh. I came out there one day, I remember, and I was like, guys, it's been a day. And they're like, honey, what happened? I'm like, I just need to hit some shit. And if I said that around most people, they'd be like, oh God, not Jen Welter hitting shit, right? Like, put the pads back on. And they were like, let's get it. And I was like, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
we're here for.
Yeah.
And they're
Just
like,
get it
no
out.
dinking for her today. Drives only. And I'm like,
Drives, only drives.
pretty much. I am learning, like when Happy Gilmore learned how to putt, I'm learning the art of the dink, but
Yep. It
that one
takes a
takes a
while.
little longer. Yeah.
One take at a time. I love it. I mean, how great were those stories? Can you imagine what it takes to jump on a field with men at 5'2", a buck 30, and go toe to toe with professional football players. And I'm very excited to play pickleball with her, but I want her to be my partner. I don't want to play against her because I know what's coming. She's going to take all that fuel of being a professional football player, and she's going to just start crushing it on the pickleball court. That was so much fun. I felt like we got a lot of fun, nerdy football information, and I cannot wait to attend a camp as an adult. This is the theme. This happened last week. I just want to go to as many, I don't know, football, baseball, softball camps as humanly possible. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. All right, we've reached the moment, feel good moment of the week. I thought it would be cool because Jen had so many firsts, breaking so many glass ceilings. And we have another amazing feel good moment of the week of someone that is breaking glass ceilings. And that is one of my heroes. I'm just going to say that. It's very easy to say she's a hero. And that woman is Doris Burke. Just this past week, she became the first woman to serve as a game analyst on TV for a championship final in one of the four major professional U.S. sports leagues. Okay. So she is calling the NBA finals right now as we speak between Dallas and Boston. And honestly, I was surprised because I thought she had been doing this when I realized, she'd been covering the finals since 2009. But she was a sideline reporter for ABC's coverage for 2009 to 2019. Then she served as an analyst on ESPN radio for the past four finals. But I didn't realize that this is the first time she'd been doing it on TV. And so here's what she said: my focus is in preparing for the games in front of me. But I would be lying if I didn't tell you that I am sort of mindful that there is something meaningful here, right? And the meaning for me would be if in some way this assignment makes life for women in sports easier or somehow aids in their process, then nothing could be more meaningful. I mean, mic drop. She also praised the women that came before her, giving a shout out to Robin Roberts, co-host of Good Morning America, and also Ann Myers Drysdale, the first woman to work an NBA game. And she said she saw the experiences that Roberts and Myers went through, breaking barriers while also forging their own path. Another cool moment in all of this is Jessica Mendoza, Softball Hall of Fame, ESPN baseball announcer. She said she pushed management at ESPN to start doing baseball after seeing Doris Burke call a game. And it's kind of an amazing quote. When I heard Doris on an NBA game as an analyst, not a reporter, it just completely changed my thoughts about my own position, but also women in general that have played the sport. So the fact that like Doris is, first of all, she should have been calling NBA finals games on TV, for the last 20 years. But obviously, it takes a time when you're dealing with men's pro sports. But just the fact that she's up there now and she's calling it as an analyst, not a sideline reporter, and just now has such, influence on all these other women that want to do the same thing. And now they can say, oh, well, she did it. Now I'm going to push for it. I thought it was like a real full circle moment because Jen was the first. There was no one in front of her that said, you can coach an NFL team. There's no one in front of her that said you can play men's professional football. She was the trailblazer. And now all these women in the NFL and all these women coaching national teams and living out their dreams and playing professional football, they have Jen to look back and say, it was because of her that I was able to do this. Also, one more thing about Doris Burke. She played collegiate basketball at Providence College. And there are so many awesome videos of her in heels reporting while she's dribbling a basketball. And they called it the handle and heels. So the handle and heels feel good moment of the week. Just super inspiring to have Jen Welter on and talk us through her experience and then have Doris Burke cap it off. I'm inspired. I hope you're inspired. This is full on lady power. Fans, friends, family, have the best week of your life.